Is this thing on? Seems on. What year is it? What time is it? Oh, somewhere between late January and February. Right on schedule. Cool. Suppose I should probably get this started before things go bad and this turns into a May video. So, 2022.
Last year was shit, blah blah blah, didn't feel good as a creator, blah blah blah, work sucks, I know, insert the rest of Blink-182 lyrics here, yeah, you get the point by now. However, despite it being such a shit year personally, for video games, oh, was it a banger. I know a bunch of stuff got pushed back, such as the ever-hyped Breath of the Wild 2 and others, but this year still brought so much good in gaming that I feel pretty confident in saying that this is up there as one of my favorite years in video game releases, honestly. Between heavy-hitting AAA series returning with new entries, really solid collections and remakes, and indie games just going off on so many cylinders, this year was all around phenomenal. And there really isn't much room for debate compared to 2021, which I consider to be a great year, but can totally see why others found it disappointing. Not even just for game sales, I feel like I indulged in a lot more hardware and broadened my horizons with new tech coming out. Of course, I have my base Switch and my PS5, but I ended up getting a Steam Deck, which I have fallen so in love with. I have the best version of it with 516 gigabytes, and it has not disappointed. Even now, a lot of games are updating to be playable to some capacity on it, which never ceases to impress me. When I'm not taking notes on games we're going to talk about through consoles, I'm usually doubling down by replaying on Steam Deck just because why not. I also bought a Playdate which I did not expect to be so interested in, but after talking with people like my good friend May, I bit the bullet, and after so many delays on shipments and other stuff, I just finally got it at the time of writing this, so I don't exactly have complete thoughts yet, but stay tuned. Maybe I'll make a video on it, or, you know, do my usual tweets, I guess. And of course, the PC market got better with new upgrades and shiny parts galore, which means yes, I finally got a PC thanks to some amazing friends and my fiance surprising me. With the build it has, it's definitely up there as some of the best builds in the market, and I've already bought a bigger desk and I'm looking for a second monitor, so streaming and content creation just got a whole lot better. Just, give me a few more minutes before we continue, because I can't stop staring at it. It's just so beautiful.
But enough about hardware, let's get back to the games. And before I give you guys my top 10 games of 2022, I want to set some ground rules first. Number 1, I have to have played through them completely or nearly completely. No cop-out entries just because I played them halfway. Number 2, no remakes, collections, etc. They have to be a completely new game from this year. Rule number 3, because of limitations of storage before getting a PC, I will only be using secondary footage that I find online, because recording footage for 10 games of varying length from my past setup is insanity. So let's say it's footage from a boss battle or a long playthrough that somebody has on their channel. I will be giving them credit by posting their channel name in the bottom left and posting a link to their channel, so that way you guys can follow them and give them some love, because archiving footage in this day and age is a tried and true thing that doesn't get enough credit. But let's say it's a commonplace trailer that you would find on something like IGN. I won't be crediting that trailer because, let's be honest, you're going to see that over 50 different gaming assets, so there's no need to credit the trailer, honestly. And finally, here's the obligatory My Opinions talk, which means let me know your picks down in the comments below just to show how wrong I am. And not at all to, you know, add games to my list in case I missed them. I would fucking never. But for those of you that don't know, in my wrap-ups for 2020 and 2021, I also handed out awards for things such as DLC of the Year and Remake of the Year. So before we get to the honorable mentions and the actual top 10, why don't we hand those out first? Sorry for anybody in the YouTube premiere right now. No skipping to the main course through YouTube chapters for you. You're stuck with me, bitches.
First off, DLC of the Year, and honestly, I didn't really play any DLC that stuck to me. But I'm still gonna give it to Cuphead Delicious Last Course, because I know for a fact, as soon as I start playing it, it's gonna snag the award anyways, because I adore the base game, and know it's just more of that divine, challenging bliss. Right after that, there's the newly added Collection Dimension Award. I only added this because there were some amazing collections coming out this year, and in my mind, the best two come down to Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Cowabunga Collection and Pac-Man Museum Plus. It was not an easy choice because both collections have the best of the best for not only their series, but gaming in general, but after some serious thinking, I gotta give it to Pac-Man Museum Plus. Both collections helped me realize that I'm a bigger fan of their respective series than I gave myself credit for, but Pac-Man Museum Plus was so charming with how it handled it. Throwing all of the games into a little arcade that you could design and rearrange the more you played and achieved high scores was such a great choice by the team. And of course, playing each game on arcade machines was the icing on the cake and a love letter to Pac-Man himself with his revolutionary origins, so bonus points for that. But of course, the biggest shout out to the games here, which not only brought me back to my childhood and playing them on the GBA collection, but showcased the best of this icon. Oh yeah, and Pac-in-Time is here too, I guess. Between the original, Pac-Land, Pac Battle Royale, Super Pac, and more, you'll easily find yourself addicted to getting a high score over and over again. Especially with Pac-Man Arrangement, Pac-Mania, and Pac-Man Championship Edition, which are some of the best in the series in my opinion. Especially Pac-Man Arrangement and Pac-Mania, but that might be a nostalgic bias, so shh. And finally, there is the Remake Dimension Award, and this year had some bangers that made it hard to choose between. Destroy All Humans 2 Reprobed, Pac-Man World Repacked, and so on. But the award goes to a game many of you will be shocked to see here instead of my top 10, but again, it technically is a remake that finally found its way to the West all these years later outside of emulation. Live Alive. I did not know what to expect of this game, but oh my god, is it so good! Each time period and its story may vary in quality, but overall I consider them to be good at least, and the fucking Wild West at best. Couple that with a wonderful soundtrack, insanely good visuals that I will always thank Octopath Traveler for bringing into the mainstream, and a simple turn-based battle system across a grid that opens so many possibilities thanks to charge bars and strategic abilities depending on your part at the time. It's a wonderful love letter to the original Super Famicom version that I'm glad we got overseas. I do wish that it was a little bit longer in length overall, but for what it's worth, it's a solid RPG that once again stands the test of time.
And with that, I think it's time to talk about what you've all been waiting for. Honorable mentions. These are games that I haven't completed yet, haven't even started because of time restraints and the metric ton of releases to keep up with this year, or are games that just simply didn't make the cut. Either way, these are all games that I think you should check out because I think they're neat, and I just think that gaming is neat. So neat, in fact, that this might take a few minutes, so grab a pen and paper now. I'm gonna try to rapid fire these.
Sifu, developed by Slowclap. One of my many expeditions back into the beat-em-up genre this year, Sifu's aging mechanic is brilliant and high risk, high reward in the way that you play. Yes, you could strike harder in that one part that gave you trouble, but are you confident you can play defense as well with less health? It's a strategic mind game that I appreciate in the beat-em-up genre, where it challenges the feeling you're mostly offense and no defense. Voice of Cards, The Forsaken Maiden, and Beasts of Burden by Alim of Square Enix. I will be completely honest, these games may have been my 10th slot on the list if I played them, because I know they're simple, but if they're anything like the first game, I'm gonna love them. Cozy tabletop RPG with cards and a soothing DM voice guiding you. Please, take all my money. Horizon Forbidden West by Guerrilla Games. This is a combination of I haven't played it fully, and I don't think it'd make my top 10. It's a solid game with a fantastic story, don't get me wrong, but I feel like the world is a little too cluttered at times that make it feel like a go here for side quest and item type of game in between story beats. Still is extremely good, and I really think the story is a great follow-up in a gorgeous world. I just wish the world had a little less artificial clutter to feel more natural, and maybe it would have skyrocketed not just into top 10, but into top 5. Triangle Strategy by ArtDink and Square Enix. Again, HD 2D graphics are the best, and this is a tactical RPG that I have to sink my teeth into more to fully grasp. But from what I've played, this is a damn fun experience with a story that has as many twists and turns as the maps you play on. I'm sure my quarter-life crisis and RPG buddy Thasal can attest to it way more than me at the moment, but for what it's worth, Team Asano strikes a good amount of gold again. Ghostwire Tokyo by Tango Gameworks, one of 3 games I bought on March 25th and I would say is the most interesting in concept of the bunch. It definitely may miss the mark at some forms of combat pacing, but the enticing world of spirits you'll find is too hard to ignore. Tiny Tina's Wonderlands by Gearbox Games, the second of the 3 games releasing on March 25th. This is just a really solid shooter. I definitely wouldn't say it's the best in the series and feel like the D&D aspects could be utilized a bit more, but it packs that tight gunplay punch we expect from Borderlands with some great side characters and classes to boot. Plus, playing it with my buddy Mito the Goblo was a great time. Shout out to him for being a fellow D&D nerd I could have fun with in regards to this game. Lumberjack by Final Boss Games is an extremely short experience, yes, but I will defend this eco-friendly bear till the day I die, and cherish terrorizing humans with a mighty slap to turn them back to normal. Neon White by Angel Matrix. Extremely stylish, tightly knit shooter with a focus on a speedrun-like gameplay. You will always find yourself coming back to best your own skills as you utilize more abilities and learn the level design inside out. It easily rewards you in the best way possible for finding the fastest and most skilled way to complete a level. Koromon and Temtem, developed by Tragsoft and Crema respectively. I'm grouping these guys together because they're monster catching games that genuinely have really good aspects, but have some that make them fall flat against the obviously big competition. If I had to choose which one I like more, I'd say Koromon. Cult of the Lamb by Massive Monster. You've seen this everywhere, so I won't spend too much time on it. Genuinely a kick-ass life sim with exceptional roguelike elements that is backed by a super fun Twitch integration that brings communities together by choosing which dumbass mon to sacrifice. Jack Move by So Romantic. A cyberpunk RPG with beautiful visuals, great combat system a la Golden Sun style, and freedom to play that ends just a little too soon for my liking. If it had an hour or two more, maybe it'd make it. Grapple Dog by Medallion Games. Inspired by GBA and DS platformers and looks, it's got a lot of spunk and great movement with the grappling hook getting so much time to shine. Extremely fun playthrough. Mario & Rabbids Sparks of Hope by Ubisoft. If you watch Flatmates, I was pretty confident it wouldn't crack my top 10, and yeah, I was right. It's a pretty fun romp, but I don't know, something just isn't clicking, and sometimes battles just feel so slow with how much you can do in one turn. Not that it's a bad thing, I hold firm that despite how solid the game is, the duology of Mario and Rabbids is just babies for a strategy game with how much one can do in one turn, in good and bad ways. That and a lot of what I was worried about in said Flatmates episode did sort of come true. It's good, but I turned my brain off for a lot of this one, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but also isn't a good thing for a strategy game. Papercut Mansion by Space Lizard Studios. This one is very personal to me since it was one of my standouts at PAX East, and the sheer passion in my 10-minute talk with the developers is so noticeable. But I haven't found every ending yet, and the first floor or so can get repetitive after a while. Still extremely solid, and a game I'm dying to pick apart Halloween. Which year's Halloween I'll leave up to you because, you know, still cursed not to upload somehow. Unfortunately, God of War Ragnarok and Xenoblade Chronicles 3 did not make the cut either. With God of War releasing during a busy time at my work with the holidays happening, and Xenoblade Chronicles 3 being over 130 hours to beat just the main story, I can't just throw them on without good justification in seeing them through. During the top 10 of 2023 video later on, I might go back and add them as a look back on what I've missed, possibly changing things up if that interests you guys. But for now, they don't make the cut, along with Pokemon Violet and Legend Arceus did not make the top 10. This is going to be a big shock to basically all of you that have watched my streams and know me as a person, considering I will not shut up about these games. Each are good in their own rights and put their best foot forward to advance Pokemon as a series, both of them bringing lovable new entries to the ever-expanding Pokedex, and especially in the case of Violet, both bring great exploration and memorable story beats and characters that haven't hit me this hard since arguably Sun and Moon, but definitely Black and White. And yet, as much as my favorite series ever has some of the most fun moments I've had since Gen 5, I can't justify putting it in my top 10 because yeah, the technical aspects are so undercooked and embarrassing. But also each comes with quirks the other fixes and their own small moments that I want to pick apart one day in proper reviews for these games. They are amazingly fun entries nonetheless that I am addicted to and will continue to play day in and out, but they are certainly far from the more well-rounded experiences on pretty much every cylinder that these next 10 games are. But they are confidently towards the top in my favorites of the Pokemon series, and are easily my number 11 slot. Also, this means that I'll have to pick between which one is better, so suck it!
Jesus fucking Christ, this is getting a little too long. It's time to actually rapid fire some names.
Nobody Saves the World, Dying Light 2, Infernax, Citizen Sleeper, Yuden Chronicles Rising, Tinykin, Lunistis, Circus Electrique, Weird West, Frogun, Digimon Survive, Card Shark, Vampire the Masquerade Swan Song, Rollerdrome, Islets, Azure Striker Gunvolt 3, Spark, The Electric Jester 3, Blossom Tales 2, The Minotaur Prince, Norco, The Quarry, Trek to Yomi, Source of Madness, Steel Rising, Ito no Yami, Blind Fate, The Outbound Ghost, Kirby's Dream Buffet, Strangers of Paradise, Final Fantasy Origin, The Spirit and the Mouse, Grounded now that it's out of early access, Moonscars, Lemon Cake, Melatonin, Metal Hellsinger, Return to Monkey Island, Scorn, A Plague Tale Requiem, Ghost Song, Sonic Frontiers, Somerville, Evil West, Marvel's Midnight Suns, Chain Echoes, Little Gator Game, and so much more! Oh my god, I just did that in one take. That's like better than sex. What the fuck?
I am so sorry about the long wait, but this year was absolutely phenomenal and I didn't want to let anything go to waste. I hope you found your next game in the middle of those honorable mentions, and if I missed anything, let me know in the comments down below after you watch this video. Alright, this is it. For real this time. No more skits, I won't crack too many jokes, I just genuinely want to appreciate these games for what they are, and I don't want to take up more of your time than I already have. Sit tight and get ready, ladies and gentlemen. These are my top 10 out of this dimension games of 2022. If you're expecting any cool transitions, by the way, temper your expectations. That's not in the budget right now, so settle for this.
As seen with many of the games in my honorable mentions, art can come in many forms, including replication of nostalgic memories and systems that can be brought to true fruition thanks to the ever-growing tech we can work with. And with The Legend of Zelda going in an insanely wild direction, it's nice to look back on the old school roots with Tunic and appreciate that very first feeling of discovery in a foreign world we all got when playing the first Zelda at some point in our life. Wearing its inspiration on its sleeve proudly for all to see, Tunic by Andrew Schuldeis is an isometric action-adventure game that has you playing as a fox with little more than a stick to start off its quest as you explore a strange world with no decipherable dialogue and owns every second of it. From the moment you wake up, you're left to your whim like the Zelda of yore to explore and figure out for yourself where to go next, and I adored every second of it. An insanely beautiful world of forests, with sunlight peeking through the trees, torchlit temples, and more. It really is a love letter that makes the experience better with less jank and as little frustration as possible. The combat is precise and shockingly has some Dark Soul inspirations in the form of stamina that will keep you on your toes and punish you for overstepping your boundaries. It felt like many battles, even so early as an hour in, were dances of steel that got my hands sweaty due to how insane some damage you take can be. But you also have bombs and the such at your disposal, which can add a bit of strategy to the mix once you get a feel of how certain enemies play out, or can even damage others on accident, utilizing every part of your noggin to make a trip down gaming memory lane a worthy challenge nonetheless. But Benson, you might say, if this really is that kind of Zelda and you're left to your whim, can't you accidentally stumble into tough areas and be punished for exploration unfairly since you don't even get told your own skill set? And yes you can. But that's why manuals were invented, right? And yes, for my lovely Twitch viewers that'll know what I'm getting at, this game does indeed have a manual. But like everything else in the game, you're not giving it straight away, and instead must piece it together by finding it scattered throughout the realm. Finding the pages feels so rewarding because they give you things from a world map, controls, and story beats to guide you in the form of odd scripture, but well drawn and easy to figure out pictures, making every nook and cranny of the world ripe for puzzle solving and exploration. And believe me, you'll want every manual page, not just to help you figure things out, but also for the importance of the story in a way. Tunic not only emulates the feeling of the first Zelda beautifully, but makes it its own identity, playing with your inner child as you solve exceptional puzzles that will barely take up your time and find yourself staring at the manual and the road ahead to figure out your next move. And yes, even though it still does a really good job leaving you frustrated in small instances throughout with puzzles and dead ends that are too vague for a while, Tunic keeps you coming back for more as you hack and slash through enemies, pots, and even grass and bushes to figure out what is going on. It's a beautiful testament that shows some game design can be pulled off amazingly in the current age and bear the fruits that were never planted right long ago. In a world where game length is the new size matters, I'm of the mindset that it doesn't matter how long a game is, it's how you use the length to make the experience memorable. Enter Stray by Blue 12 Studio, a game that will take no more than 6 hours to beat, but man does it use its time wisely. Playing as a stray cat, you find yourself lost in a dystopian world with nothing but a drone named B12 to try to guide you, and he can't even figure out what's going on yet because of his amnesia. And with that, a society of robots and killer bacteria, you're off on your quest without a clue or care in the world. What sells Stray for me other than playing as a cat, because again, cat person, is the world building and design of each level. I know many are disappointed that you aren't just a cat being an asshole, and instead are part of a grander scale story, but I fucking love it because of how the development team draws you in around every bend. The world is at your paw with the press of a button, to leap onto ledges and rooftops, and it's rewarding every single time between finding memories for B12 to scan and remember more about the world before ruin, and talking to the metallic denizens that inhabit it. Yes, we've seen robots outliving humans many times before in science fiction, but Stray just takes the tried and true concept and runs with it, as these robots are mimicking human behavior in many ways, making the reality of it all hit you like a truck. Yeah, it's funny getting music sheets for this robot that looks like a hippie and hearing him belt out songs, but when you talk to more citizens and see them try to copy things like hair, clothing, and even having emotions and caring for one another, it gets kind of dark and heartbreaking in a way. And all of this is done effectively by a really healthy mixture of showing and telling. Add on to that some really dark scenery and sewers that made me mouth what the fuck, and you have some of the most amazing design choices of 2022, and I am so happy that you can explore it all as a cat. Playing as this little curious feline is hysterical and clever all at once. You're small enough to sneak into any corner of the world, which truly makes the world feel natural, as your only real boundary is the walled concrete ruins left behind by humanity, but at the same time, tiny cat brain go meow when it sees a rug to claw. The puzzles and interactions are so pure and genuinely brilliant because some things really can only be solved by being the biggest asshole in the world. From meowing to scare someone trying to catch a bucket of paint so you can gain entry into a bar, all the way to scratching at doors, walls, shades, and etc., the developers made sure the core appeal of playing as a cat was correct in every single way. Every challenge and means of traversal felt tailor-made with cats in mind and doesn't just feel like drop a cat into this adventure game. Bringing back my praise of world and level design full circle. The studio knew the assignment and nailed it, as you had to let go of your normal thinking and just embrace cat. Sure, the camera may be a bit clunky considering you're a small cat in a big world, and yes, as much as I still like it for what it's worth, I wish maybe there was an hour or two more to avoid an abrupt feeling end, but Stray gave me a cozy experience throughout, with a unique twist on dystopian worlds, solid storyline, and really great puzzles that utilize the best of your character. And hey, for a game that's all about an adorable kitty, that's all one can ask for, right? The last two games have had really solid level design, exceptional storytelling, and well thought out puzzles. But sometimes the only thinking you need to do is with your fists, which is exactly what Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Shredder's Revenge does so goddamn well. In an era where the Turtles are coming back stronger than ever in so many effective cartoons and other ways, a classic beat-em-up was long overdue, and it delivers button smashing, combo building, pizza-powered combat superbly. Every hit feels like it has a surprising amount of weight to it, and unlocking even more moves with challenges and story beats makes you feel even more badass than ever as you storm across a wonderful pixel-style New York to stop Shredder, Krang, and so many other baddies. That's honestly another thing I personally enjoy as a TMNT fan, the sheer amount of callbacks and characters brought back into the mix after quite a while. I know the entire game is based on the 80s cartoon, but the joy I felt seeing Leatherhead, Groundchuck and Dirtbag, Taka and Razar, and even the goddamn Punk Frogs is immeasurable. It's just throwback after throwback as the villains play catch with Krang in his body as they try to put him back together again, and I loved wondering what baddie I'd Kurt stomp next in the next level. It's not even just the NPCs and the baddies either. The cast you get to play as had me squealing with joy. From the obviously classic Turtle Gang to fan favorites people have been wanting to play as like Splinter, April O'Neil, and Casey Jones, each coming with their own special move, team attacks, and taunts to boost your meter to use said special move. I can't praise how great each and every character is to play enough. and I never felt like I leaned one way or another. They're all just extremely well-rounded. Of course, what makes this and TMNT games in general is the multiplayer aspect, and being able to play with 6 players at once not only brings back classic arcade and couch co-op fun, but does so on a longer couch so more people can play and fight over who gets to be Leonardo first. Even though I'm the oldest and clearly more like him, why can't you just play as Michelangelo and be happy, you infuriating cunt? Multiplayer aside, what really seals this game in my top 10 for me isn't just how great the combat is, despite some enemies being a negative because of how infuriating they can be to hit and reciprocate the damage twice as much back at you for no reason, or the callbacks, or even the fact multiplayer gets the gold seal of approval yet again. It's how much fun you could still have playing solo. Many arcade-style beat-em-ups can be played single-player, but don't feel as satisfying to play alone for one reason or another in my opinion. Shredder's Revenge is the exception because of how skilled you can be at keeping combos even as swarms of the Foot Clan come at you. It never feels like the beat-em-up formula is lost in single-player, with the sheer insanity coming your way because of how varied dodging, hitting, jump hitting, sliding, grabbing, and using the environment to your advantage is. It may be an extremely short ride, but TMNT Shredder's Revenge is still memorable in all the right ways. Even down to the music, which was done by the insanely talented T-Lopes, and the opening cutscene getting me hyped and singing the 80s theme song. It's such a treat to experience alone and especially with friends. So get the game together, grab a slice, and unleash your turtle power now better than ever. Yeah, I still stand by what I said at the end of my review. Ollie Ollie World is still in my top 10 games of 2022. I won't take too long in this one since, again, already reviewed it, so if you want my full thoughts, definitely go watch that after this. Bottom line though is that Ollie Ollie World by Roll7 combines platforming and skateboarding elements into a fair but challenging experience that I found to be welcoming to all, daring to ride the ramps to reach Nirvana, but have a high reach for anyone willing to go for it. It may have a few hiccups in physics and even some story dialogue, but I found it still very endearing at the end of the day, and the message of skating not about the destination but how you get there is perfectly in sync with the gameplay. It won't hold your hand, sure, but Ollie Ollie World makes you work for every inch of the level, and even if you can't reach it, provides an alternative path for you to ride on until you get to the end and go, nah, let me do that again, until you explore every part of the level to the best of your ability. Manuals, kickflips, and other skateboarding tricks we might take for granted at times when spamming certain scores in Tony Hawk and the such are utilized to their full ability as ways to rack up points, platform, and get insane combos so long as you don't get too cocky. And again, it's all done stupendously with a controller layout that is simple and easy to pick up, adding once again to the idea of giving everyone a chance to have a go at a good challenge. Between that and splendid level design, gorgeous level aesthetics, bumping music that I still can't play because copyright, and even taking the idea of completionism out of the equation by making your only rewards cosmetics based, Ollie Ollie World is such a surprise hit that is still rad now and probably will continue to be for a long, long time. Man, Yacht Club just cannot miss, huh? Shovel Knight Dig takes our beloved knight and drops him into a roguelike, and despite some of the roguelike elements only reaching surface level instead of digging deep, it still works and is addicting to play. Don't believe me? Just ask my dear friend Trevor. Sorry, I mean Cutie Summer Girl 69. What makes this game work is not just the fact that procedurally generated rooms offer new twists, new challenges, and an infinite possibility of help or hurt your way, but how easily Yacht Club translated the tight controls from their platforming game into this one. It helps that you platform on your descent down obviously, but hopping on enemies, the heft of each swing of your shovel, and the upgrades and powers you can obtain all feel precise and with a purpose. It helps that between a bounty of colorful merchants and characters to help you on your quest and Shield Knight returning, there's never a dull moment lacking personality in this game, and the bosses also show this in spades. Just as challenging as the last game's bunch, the bosses don't let up and are super fun to take on in every run you attempt. And that is honestly what's kept me coming back despite some roguelike elements of equipment and risk-taking lacking. What you do have at your disposal as you get better excels very well in making your run extremely satisfying. You see your bags of treasure fly out of you as you return to the surface, and looking around at the trap that sent you away, the enemy placement, or the boss tauntingly there on the stage, you can't help but think, nah, this is the run. and return back to camp and get an upgraded piece of armor, a teleportation route to get you back to the world you lost in instead of right from the beginning, and anything else as you plunge into that hole and know that any mistake you made is pretty much on you. You died getting greedy going for gold as the drill catches up to you? You miscalculated a jump? Died right as you entered a level because instead of picking the route for food, you went the other way? Guess what? That's on you most likely. Now brush the dirt off and go back in there, brave knight. Use the well-knit together controls to your advantage and learn the idea behind each trap and enemy of each world, because even though rooms change all the time, the ideas are still the same and are ripe for the mastering. What should be a solid platformer with disappointing roguelike results is amplified into something addicting because the controls make everything feel near perfect to the point that you can't help but want to continue finding shiny new things, no matter how basic they are in regards to upgrading your stats, because you want to test the flow of Shovel Knight at his best and feel the smooth heave-ho of your shovel deflecting enemy attacks or knocking dirt away. The graphics going from 8-bit to an excellent 16-bit look aren't the only upgrades. Shovel Knight Dig takes aspects surface level and adds depth to them with what makes it already good. Smooth controls and addictive playstyle of an out-of-nowhere beloved character to make each run special, heart-pounding, and rewarding. A damn good feat for a prequel to a beloved classic. I was cooking with this one! Kirby and the Forgotten Land has been one of my most anticipated games for 2022, and for good reason. Kirby finally going into 3D after so much speculation and hope dating back to the cancelled game for GameCube? Of course I'm gonna want to get this game, and you know what? The final piece of the 3-game puzzle I bought on March 25th was worth the wait and then some. Kirby and the Forgotten Land translated Kirby into a 3D environment so well. Obviously, there are some limitations implemented a bit awkwardly to his movement, like capping how far he can go with his puffball float, but everything else just feels right because HAL didn't go too crazy with basic movement. They just changed the dimension, tweaked a little to fit, and then focused on making the rest of the game crazy. Part of what makes this game crazy is the ever-popular abilities that are found here, and they don't disappoint. Between ice, fire, gun, needle, and others, Kirby brings some of his hits new and old to this game and not only utilizes all of them in some decent puzzle rooms and individual challenges scattered across the world map, but also gives the opportunity to upgrade them with their own perks and challenges to be found, adding some insane depth to abilities that I hope they bring back next game. Shout out to Dragonfire for being super OP. That thing was insanely clutch in boss battles. The bosses, while still relatively easy, are also scaled to new heights as well. They feel more imposing than ever, especially King Dedede, who comes with yet another banger theme in this game. And then the final string of bosses are so out there, so hype, and even more trademark Kirby cosmic horror-like than ever before, that I can't help but love them. Especially the final boss that, without going into story spoilers or battle specifics, makes things go God mode, including Kirby. Seeing these bosses go all out with a full battlefield is smile-inducing, and makes saving the Waddle Dees so satisfying. And again, another great piece to this puzzle is that there are challenges scattered throughout that net you Waddle Dees to save. The challenges are all great additions and add to making each level feel more alive than they already are, as you poke around corners and hidden areas to find collectibles and Waddle Dees to bring back to a rebuilding Waddle Dee Town. On the topic of that, Waddle Dee Town was such a fantastic part of the game I didn't expect to enjoy as much. The fishing minigame, going to the forge to upgrade abilities, eating at the cafe, even going to the arenas are all unlocked and made whole naturally in this town of adorable citizens. I spent way too much time here than I thought I would, and will continue to, because a hub world of Waddle Dees was brilliant. Even Mouthful mode is fun and produced many memes. The puzzles can get slightly repetitive in levels, but when you use them in their own challenge levels, whoo baby, it's a real treat and a creative addition to Kirby's gimmick of the game dating back to Return to Dreamland on the Wii. See, that's the thing about the Forgotten Land that makes me happy and so thrilled to play it. These additions and the core of what makes Kirby so special are amplified thanks to the addition of 3D. Upgrading abilities, Waddle Dee Town, Mouthful mode, etc. are all great and welcome parts to the Kirby formula, but the core itself somehow someway just fits comfortably like a glove in 3D and gives what we know and love time to shine in a world as grand as his adventures. Exploring levels inside and out, take it to new heights vertically and depth-wise. Abilities have a lot more oomph to them over an entire area, especially when upgraded, making you feel more powerful. Your rivalry with King Dedede? The dude literally picks up a pillar in his first fight with you and goes all-powerful anime villain out of nowhere. Even the final boss rivals the sheer power of Marks in scope, but somehow feels better because you get to see the full brunt of its power in 3D. Even Meta Knight's entrance in the arena just feels more badass, and it almost is identical to other entrances, but now we can see how fucking mad of a lad he is to charge into battle. The Forgotten Land isn't just a step forward for the Kirby series I am excited to see happen again, but a tribute to the past and giving it its due in a new entry that takes so many steps forward in a stellar adventure, while making sure its roots are in place and even better. Poyo's in the chat for the Pink Puff, boys. He's back.
Come on, you guys knew this would show up.
Oh, lordy! This is gonna get good. So yeah, Elden Ring is number 4 on this list, and for good reason. As much as I enjoy everything that I will get into in a second, one of the most obvious complaints you hear a lot that I fully agree with is that I am not a fan of taking a boss and just asking, ooh, what if there were 2 of them? Like, no, that is just annoying. Stop that. Secondly, I really love the open world, but even if you're insanely leveled up, there are still those select few bosses that are just common Souls-like bullshit that nobody likes, whether it's elemental damage up the ass or some other thing. Third, hit detection every once in a while can be a bit off. It's not very common, but when it happens, you just know. Okay, now that we have those minor gripes out of the way, let's talk about how fucking amazing Elden Ring is and worth every ounce of hype it's received. One of my favorite things about Elden Ring is, despite some of the bull I mentioned a second ago, it overall feels like one of the more accessible Souls games in the series, while being able to give you a good kick in the dick if it feels like it. And this overall accessibility can be pinned to 2 points in my opinion. The different experimentations of your build that feel expanded upon in so many ways, which can be thanked in part by the second point, the open world and freedom it gives you. There are objectives as the Tarnished, yes. There is indeed a main storyline you get told and an epic cutscene, yes. But the lore of this world, the way you tackle everything, including your character's strengths, are all at the palm of your hand. It can be daunting at times, really. In a time where we are so used to having our hand held by many open world games in the forms of mini-maps and markers, it's nice to see trends picked up in games like Breath of the Wild that led to this jaw-dropping level of freedom. It's so expansive and foreign to people that I've seen stories of everyone keeping track of things in journals or take note of landmarks, and that makes me smile so much. This is the point of Elden Ring's expansive world, making you keep track of your surroundings, where you've been, and instead of hyperfixating on markers and points of where to go next, soaking in the beauty of it all and the majestic horror of what dwells not just in castles and ruins, but even in forests as soon as you walk out into the world. It makes you look at everything so differently. Bosses are now optional until you feel ready, a lesson you learn right away with the Tree Sentinel that looks more like a pushover as you look back on your journey and trials and tribulations you faced. Groups of enemies can be harvested freely in some epic ways. I remember running into a group of soldiers of Godric, taking a supply caravan pulled by giant hulking beasts, and with sword in hand, dashed through them on horseback, weaving in and out of the giants' legs until I destroyed them all and stole weapons inside, charging ahead to the castle and fighting even more soldiers. When I was eventually bested, I grinded even more by taking the scenic route by the beach and fighting some land octopus and sidestepped through caves, smashing through 3 bosses in 2 hours through my exploration and tour of the wild lands. And then when you take it all in, you build your character by the fire, wipe the sweat off your brow, and get ready for more. That's the joy of the development team of From Software, taking a well-oiled formula in their games, adding some more gasoline for the hell of it, and then setting it all off in a beautiful blaze. Elden Ring gives you a new perspective, an open-minded perspective, on their formula in such a stunning and successful way that when you take it all in, you've lost track of time and can upgrade your character to new plateaus to show the big bads of the world who's boss. Speaking of the big bads and the lore of this game, Elden Ring has had a lot of discourse in regards to storytelling that honestly made me chuckle. It certainly has storytelling, it's just a lot more indirect. Show, rather than tell right away. And while I do understand why people don't like it, and while it certainly is not my favorite lore and story out there, I still love everything Elden Ring has to throw my way. The discovery of lore feels so satisfying, whether it's through world building and putting the pieces together, or just amazing cutscenes to bosses, and it makes you feel like the world is truly organic in many ways. Pieces you find early on may connect and make more sense the more you explore, and it's all at your pace. And that's what makes Elden Ring so beloved and what I believe to be accessible to me. The freedom you get replaces tons and tons of stress you feel in other Souls games not getting past a certain hump, because if you can't break down a wall by bashing your head against it, go get better equipment, some more magic, and a horse, and do it again with a better chance of success. Every part of the map rewards you or punishes you, even through random moments like opening a chest and it teleporting you to a wild part of the map that you have to run from instead of face head on. Elden Ring allows for natural progression, natural world building, indirect storytelling, and natural exploration that just begs for more. I should know, I played for 5 hours straight one time and didn't even bat an eye. It's crazy that I'm talking so highly about a game that's number 4 on my list, and I'm still exploring the smaller details, sure, but Elden Ring is that good. Thanks, Fuse, for getting me to buy into the hype, because it's a pillar of a game to me, and will definitely stand the test of time in my opinion. And this somehow makes the next 3 games all that more impressive, and stick with me in so many ways. But without other comparisons or rankings, Elden Ring is more than a classic fantasy tale realized fully. It's more than a feat of strength and courage. It's a tale of patience and taking in the world for what it is, one stride at a time, instead of mindlessly going from one place to another and replacing that by being rewarded for getting there and doing things your way. Isn't that right, me?
Let's fucking go! Yeah! Yeah! That's the good shit!
Fuck yeah, it is. How many times have you or anyone you know said these words in some form? Oh, this game is something a select few will get. Oh man, I don't know if you'll like this game. It's something of a niche game. Man, people don't like this game. It isn't performing well because it doesn't fit the public view of video games. Real gamers play this selective title. Most of the time when I see this, I just roll my eyes, because it's something that really doesn't fit the moniker of, you'll only get it if you're this kind of player. And maybe I'm wrong about this game fitting that role myself, but Pentiment is a game that Obsidian crafted where even if you play it, you may not get it, but if you do, it's an experience. And let me tell you, shout out to Fuse yet again for not shutting up about this game, because genuinely, I get it. And I am addicted to it. Pentiment has you playing as an artist doing a commission in an abbey with the promise of going to Nuremberg and living a fulfilling life, when you are suddenly sprung into a murder mystery and have to solve it and other conflicts years down the road. One of my favorite things out the gates about this adventure game is just the art direction they went for, mimicking the art of medieval times that you would see in manuscripts, painted glass windows, and the such, which not only makes the game stand out artistically, but gives it a ton of personality between facial expressions and body movements. Not that it needed the extra pinch of personality, because it already shows it off in so many ways. From the way text bubbles show different writing styles to differentiate between personalities and social classes should you enable it, to seeing some characters giving their thoughts on art and other historic events by being planted there mid-convo, Pentiment is nothing short of personality, and a love for the time period of history we play through. That extends even into our main character, who almost symbolically starts off as a blank canvas, but during those first few interactions and decisions to decide what you study and who you are, you paint the masterpiece that will be the playthrough in so many ways. Obsidian adores a good story and decisions affecting it down the road, and even choosing to study Latin and be a bit of an eccentric flirt and party animal, one of the first faces of Andreas I chose to paint, will show you different parts of yourself, others, and the mystery at hand. Many times I thought a simple conversation about the church wouldn't yield much direction, but I would soon be proven wrong, as I could choose to bring logic to the table based on my logistics character trait that would lead to a character reacting harshly and remembering down the road, while on the other side of it all, a conversation I thought would lead to something big was halted because I didn't choose to study medicine. And that's one of Pentiment's many glowing traits that leads to such a memorable story and experience. Not only are you allowed to be whoever and see the personalities of whatever before the day ends, but it all genuinely leads to different avenues on how to tackle the murder that you may not genuinely encounter in another playthrough. It's the same story, yes, but much like paintings and reinterpretations of them, there's something different every time that'll keep you coming back to analyze it. I may not have studied astronomy to understand zodiacs to solve a puzzle deciphering a message, but my study of Latin bridged the gap in some ways, and I could still achieve what I was hoping for, albeit a little slower. All because one conversation with a nobleman asking my studies hours ago. Everything and everyone has a purpose that works so cohesively with your decision making that you'll appreciate the slow pacing of your day and the story as a whole even more as time goes. You'll appreciate the intricate themes of religion, politics, justice, and most importantly, the difference between right and wrong, and it's fucking brilliant. It may not have hard bosses or cater to that old itch you haven't felt scratched in ages like Elden Ring and Tunic, but Pentiment carves its own path by making sure every step and moment in the story pay off for your patience with the small details in between. Rewarding you for going to that meal and listening in to family gossip and drama, spooling wool with the women of the town, and even helping an elderly widow with her daily chores, all to figure out who done it. It's such a refreshing take on the adventure genre that has its own wit and philosophy behind it that you'll only appreciate if you really take the time to go look into events and every person before sitting down for a meal and fast forwarding time. And I genuinely mean everything. You literally control what you do before time advances, whether you want to charcoal rub a piece of paper to find a letter from the last piece on top of it still intact because of pressure, find a secret contraption to sneak into the forbidden library, or even flirt with a nun, you have all the time in the world before you sit for a pint and some bread, which feels unheard of in this current gaming climate. In a space where even other games with a mystery push you on a certain path, with time limiting after one or two conversations or puzzles solved, it's refreshing to see that you're really rewarded for taking the time to understand the world around you, why someone was killed in the first place, and what to do going forward. Or even if it's the right thing to do. You'll still get that time limit when you go forth to fill your stomach, mind you, but it's up to you to really fill your mind in between and get the most of this game by actively going for it instead of letting it come to you. And it led to almost 4 hours straight of playing without realizing it because I learned about the history of the world, the people, myself, and how justice truly works back then, and honestly even now in many ways. Obsidian is a studio that continues to hit it out of the park with its phenomenal RPGs and the full release of Grounded this year too. But I gotta admit, this game, which averages 13 hours of playthrough, has had me coming back to see the different ways I can paint the perspective of the story better than many RPG releases this year, and truly feels like the most original idea I've seen in gaming in ages. Even if the second half seems suspiciously predictable in some ways, it still sinks its talons into you with so much to say. Write your story, decide what's your version of justice, and create your art in Pentiment. Seriously, if you do it and you really let it engross you, you won't regret it. You know what I love? 3D platformers. I love platformers as a whole, but 3D platformers with great collectathon elements are my absolute jam. Second to RPGs, obviously. Over the last half decade, maybe even closer to a decade depending on who you talk to, it's been awesome to see them making such a resurgence without missing a beat. And with this resurgence, we've had some interesting takes on the genre, which leads me into this next entry that has one of the most interesting takes out there. Hellpie from Sluggerfly has you playing as Nate the Demon of Bad Taste. And on the topic of bad taste, I will say right away, this game has some very gross and hit or miss humor that didn't land the mark several times with even me. It's to be expected with a game that has you collecting disgusting ingredients like STD ticks, tampons, and rotten eggs to make a delicious dessert for Satan himself. And yet, that humor still had its moments, but most importantly, baked up some delicious collectathon and platforming beats. It was one of the first things I played at PAX East, and one of the first noticeable things to me was having a cherub named Nugget attached to you at all times, not just to be a parody of an adorable companion, but for combat and platforming. Sure, Nate can jump, double jump, and dash, but if you really want to get the best of this game's secrets and collectibles, you gotta upgrade your Nugget. And when you do, that already solid platforming just spreads its unholy wings and takes flight. That one swing you use to cross gaps suddenly becomes 3 that refills as you freefall. Your attack can give you a few extra inches into the air. Your dash is stringed together, and you can even throw Nugget up to fly high. And it's all what a platformer needs to be with this many ways to platform. Tight, responsive, and immediate impact. Going forward with this idea, the skill tree in Hellpie is stellar and goes hand in hand with collectible placement and the overall level design of each hub world and individual level. They mesh together to create a cohesive and rewarding experience because once you get those first few cans of collectible food to upgrade Nugget, you get access to the simple upgrades that evolve your experience beyond just taking the scenic route and the hubs and levels, but taking the high-flying route, which is just magical. But no matter what route you take, you'll always find some item to snag that rewards you for getting there your way, giving you a sense of freedom to platform, which led to me testing the limits of my abilities. I found in due time that instead of scaling the island of the first hub world the normal way, I swung, dashed, attack spun my way nearly to the top to enter a restaurant inside of a dying whale. And once I unlocked more hub worlds and more levels in them, I gained even more power at my fingertips. Hellpie does an amazing job of placing its collectibles in creative ways that rewards you for channeling your untapped platforming potential, but also doesn't punish you for wanting to do it the normal way, which is a hard balance to pull in level design in my opinion. Add on some amazing horn upgrades you can get and test out through sacrificial rituals, and you have a character that feels solid platforming not just vertically, but horizontally, diagonally, and yeah, just about every direction if I'm gonna be frank. Speaking of every direction, I know I said the humor is hit or miss, but the level design is far from missing. Sluggerfly reached deep into the corners of hell to find the grossest, most shocking, and most obviously phallic creatures, levels, and interactions ever, and I fell in love with each level and its goal. From overfilling a food critic so his heart quite literally explodes from his chest with a pipe puzzle that doesn't overstay its welcome, to battling literal poop that are, mocking the soldiers from the losing side of World War II if you catch my drift, and even taking down drugged up lizards with a Gatling gun, ending with a Scarface reference, Hellpie channels all 7 sins in unique ways that are colorful, creepy, and outlandish all at the same time in the best way possible. And it really helps that each of these levels know when to drag you through a disturbing wonderland through story and puzzles, and when to let your freedom to platform do the talking for it. It's bonkers to see a game so out there show restraint and let the player do the talking themselves. It's genuinely admirable and kept me on my toes in the best way possible. It's far from one of the hardest games out there and the combat is simplistic, sure, but the developers knew this and are proud of the vision they set out to do. Give you a game where your playground's limits are as far as the eye can see. The amount of times I pumped my fist in the air or got hyped because I successfully got halfway through a level without ever touching the ground is immeasurable, and I'm glad Hellpie left me hungry for more in every positive way. Side note too, but the ending is so funny. I won't give away too much of what it is, even by accident from being vague. All you get is that it's very on brand for Satan in any cartoonish form to pull off that ending with the cast, and I loved it. But all these ingredients for platforming, solid level design that rewards you no matter where you go, and creative spice put into making these landscapes all come together in the most surprising way possible to create one of my favorite indie experiences of the year, and more importantly, one of my favorite games of the year. Would you believe me if for most of the year up until this point, this was my #1 game? That's right, this was originally going to be my favorite game of the year, but of course, as many of you know, I replayed these games during my Christmas break and even caught up on games I didn't get the chance to play, like Tunic and the #1 entry. And what's even more shocking is it's not only from a genre I don't play often or think has many contenders for some of my favorite games out there, but is one of maybe 2 or 3 games I walked away from feeling unsure about during PAX East. Man, what a difference time has made between PAX and now. I walked away from this game feeling unsure. It didn't click with me for some reason back then, and it felt like I was just going in circles, trying to figure out why so many people sat down to play this game. I know a demo will never truly grasp a game's potential, no matter what stage of development it's in, but I felt like what I was served wasn't going to be it, wasn't going to wow me. I am so beyond happy I gave this another shot, because Signalis by Rose Engine and published by Humble Games, who is just having a banger of a year alongside fellow publisher Thunderful Games, not only gave me one of the most complete gaming experiences for me, but one of my favorite survival horror experiences of all time. To preface all of this, I don't play horror much in any forms. It's not that I'm a scaredy cat. Oh my god! Okay, 10% of it is me being a little bitch. It's just that many experiences boil down to the same thing for me. Jump scare central, which can only get you so far, or campy horror straight from the 80s that does have its fair share of creepiness, but you can't shake the one-liners or ironically funny moments. Because of this, I don't really experience survival horror to its full potential like many others do, and the only real standout experience before Signalis was Resident Evil 7 and Silent Hill, and for very, very good reason. Signalis fixes all of this by turning an eye away from your standard zombie shooter or Silent Hills, and journeying far into the science fiction territory where your main enemies are your own kind gone rogue, replicas. And Signalis runs with its premise right out of the gates. First of all, the graphics and gameplay have no shame in taking inspiration from the PS1 era, which adds to the charm of this game. You have your save room, your newborn 3D look like back in the day, albeit obviously a bit more polished, and room-from-room exploration instead of seamlessly going around the world. And it's all without the notorious PS1 tank control or all-around jank we've come to accept with games from those eras, so the overall feeling you have walking around, aiming, shooting, and even stun gunning replicas is well balanced and near perfect. Puzzles are cleverly vague and make you think outside the box, such as lock-picking service hatches, tuning radios to get a solution, symbols translated into an idea of what you need to do, etc, etc. Signalis even combines many of these puzzles together to create brain teasers that you'll solve in between anxiety attacks of what may loom around the corner. It's damn near brilliant. Secondly, the story is trippy, engrossing, and shocking, and left me speechless at many points, not just through telling, but also showing through many things you will interact with throughout the game, which had my attention every step of the way. I don't want to spoil much, but it's certainly a great ride that is punctuated in one of 4 endings you get that aren't even conclusive and leaves interpretation up to the player. And you get these endings in the way you play, which brings me to my third point. Signalis really emphasizes survival and it will not hold anything back. You have an inventory, yes, but you have only about 5 slots. One will be dedicated to your gun should you choose, and the rest are slotted to ammo, stun guns, notes, keys to lock boxes, and so on, leading you to have to choose wisely what you'll bring with you into the unknown, what you'll leave behind in the save room storage, and what you think is going to be important. It helps that some items you can combine to save a slot, such as repairing a broken key, but each broken part before being combined is its own slot. Many horror games I feel like have too lenient of an inventory system at times, or will make it easy for you to cheat the system without repercussion, which can lead to the survival in survival horror becoming more of a side note rather than front and center. Not here. You really need to pay attention to your surroundings and what you pick up, because the way back to that save room or puzzle that you have the solution for seems like miles away when you're facing my fourth point that ties everything previously mentioned together. The genuine horror and atmosphere. This game has your typical abandoned facilities with creepy crawlers around every corner, sure, but the replicas absolutely horrified me because they may move like zombies, but they are possessed and rogue artificial intelligence. They are not completely mindless. If they see you when you're trying to hide in a corner, they let out a blood-curdling shriek, which alerts others in the room to swarm on you, and it can lead to claustrophobic panic really quick. But that in itself is where the game wants you to play smart and try to survive instead of going gun-ho. On top of different endings based on your playstyle, some puzzles and exploration may lead you to leave your ammo and even stun gun possibly behind, so you are quite literally unarmed in a dangerous place for God knows how long. So your only option is to run. Run past the enemies as they screech, hope that door is unlocked and that there isn't some fresh hell on the other side, and even if you bring your gun, you need to know when to save ammo because you don't know when you'll find more. Sure, you can save a bullet by curb stomping them in the finishing blow, but really? Is it worth it? This leads to you trying to read the game and these replicas. Even early on I had scenarios that horrified me because I didn't know if one that was mindlessly chopping away at bodies would turn around and hit me if I got too close. If one in the bathroom would see me in the mirror reflection as it just stood there looking at itself while I hoped I didn't have to get too close by sneaking through the stalls and a possible crevice between. You won't know though unless you do it, and if you do it your way no matter what, There are consequences in the finale which will keep you coming back to this haunted and desolate part of space, because you want to see everything and get better at playing it either conservatively or explosively. You have the freedom to tackle it your way, but it's not too scary. Nothing will pop out of the corner, and there should only be 2 down this long hallway that I saw. Right? That dead body isn't just a replica toying with me if I walk by. Right? That is the ironic beauty of Signalis. It's crafted this world that is empty, but also scarily filled with life all at once. It's given you endless opportunities, but limited time and space to do it, making you explore every inch of this large place, but makes you feel like you're up against the wall, gives you a vague grasp of the story and why you are here, but pieces everything no matter where you turn. It's not just a masterclass of game design, it's a masterclass of storytelling and entertainment, calling back, I feel like, to one of my favorite horror movies, Alien, and how similarly it did all of that. There are definitely some small faults and puzzles that were a tad annoying for a second. No game, not even my favorite one, will ever be perfect. But I can't deny that Signalis delivers such an engaging experience from the get-go that will leave you thrilled, chilled, amazed, and above all else, many levels of speechless. It encapsulates everything I loved about gaming in the wonderful year of 2022 perfectly, and even brings each part of my previous 9 games that I adored together in a complete package. It had the nostalgic feeling of the past with so much polish to it, like Tunic. It had wonderful puzzles and a new perspective in a rather small package of a game like Stray. It let your fists and charging into battle without second thought do the talking when needed, like TMNT. It gave me a unique twist on a genre I've loved dipping my toes into more than ever, like Ollie Ollie World. It took surface level basics to a well-worn genre and gave them some addicting depth to tinker with at every turn, like Shovel Knight Dig. It lets you combine and take what you have to new levels like Kirby, and much like Elden Ring, Pentiment, and Hellpie, it gives you the freedom to tackle things your way, with every action having an equal or opposite reaction. Add onto it its own stellar ideas and world, and you have Signalis, my game of the year. A game that I didn't expect to have such an impact on the second go, but has me in a death grip wanting more again and again.
And after a long time, that brings us to the end of my list of the top 10 games of 2022. Man, what a fucking year, am I right? Again, I probably will do a recap at the beginning of the top 10 games of 2023 video later on at the end of the year, just in case anything changes after I finish games like God of War Ragnarok and Xenoblade Chronicles 3. But I hope on its own right now, these 10 games showcase to you why I loved this year so much and consider it one of my favorites in gaming. It had so much variety to it that I had a new enjoyable experience around every turn. And with 2023 looking just as, if not more hype, the future's looking pretty bright for gaming. But with that being said though, that concludes this video. Thank you so much for tuning in as always. Before we go though, what would a Game Dimension video, review or not, be without question time? Have you played any of these games before? What do you think of them if you have? What are your personal picks for top games of 2022? And finally, what are your anticipated games of 2023? Let me know in the comments down below. Be sure to like and subscribe if you liked what you saw, and I really hope you guys enjoyed this format. I know a lot of you have been asking me to do top 10 videos or just ranking videos in general for the longest time, and I hope I did what's considered to me a foreign format justice enough so that way you want to see more. But even then, I'm excited to get all the wonderful videos that I have planned for 2023 out for your enjoyment. And I'm also excited to eventually get my studio back when it's done being a storage for all the construction tools that we're using to renovate the house. At least I'll have a working bathroom and shower on my side of the house, right? Until next time though, this is Benson from the Game Dimension, signing off. Have a good day, guys.